very good music StreamYard produces for the countdown. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Go Talk with Marcus, powered by Poddex, fueled by Go Fuel. Once again, joining the show is Blaine Spencer of the Final Whistle Sports Pod. To talk about his Warriors and their Game 2 win and preview Game 3. Before we get into it, shout out to my guy Charlton. We're watching the game. We're watching Game 2, and there were a lot of turnovers. And he said, "Man, it's Turnover City." And I said, "Bro, that's gonna be the name of the next show, Turnover City." So here we are, Turnover City. Appreciate you, bro, for giving me the name of the episode. I didn't know what it was going to be. I'm not going to ask you how you're doing, just because we were just on a show like 10 minutes ago talking about the Commanders.
And I was extremely depressed, so now we're going to try and turn the tables right now.
I'm going to let's try to get you happy. What was the biggest difference between Game 1 and Game 2? Game 1, obviously, Boston gets the job done 120 to 108. Game 2, though, blowout by Golden State. I believe they were up like close to 30 going into the fourth. And they were able to tie things up 1-1 as we head into Boston for Wednesday's Game 3. What was the biggest difference between Game 1 and Game 2 from your estimation?
Well, clearly it was the turnovers, and I don't think it was very close, but I know, especially live ball turnovers, I know you're going to probably piggyback on that for the most part, but I wanted to also talk about role play. Like, on the road, role players are not supposed to be like the ones that are being the difference of the game. When Jason Tatum in Game 1 was anemic, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Derek White were sensational and were basically lights out in that fourth quarter. And then in Game 2, you couldn't find it. You had an APB out for all three of them basically because they could not find the basket whatsoever. So I think that was also a huge component that people don't understand, especially in postseason basketball. Like, role players are always better at home. So it's going to be really intriguing to see if they're going to have a Game 1 performance or if the Warriors have found something that they're going to use defensively on them to create another Game 2 like performance, which was honestly the huge component of the Warriors' monster third quarters. And then the Boston had to have honestly, arguably one of the greatest fourth quarters shooting wise ever.
It was the greatest fourth quarter shooting wise in finals history. 9 of 12 from three. No one. That's a record. They hit 7 straight. That's a record. It took a historical shooting night to win that game in Game 1. Turnovers. Like 19 turnovers for Boston. It's not going to win you a game. It's not going to win you a championship. 15 of them were live ball turnovers, and Golden State had 33 points off of turnovers in Game 2. That's the big difference. But let's talk about the supporting cast, because as you mentioned, right, Horford, Smart, and White combined 15 to 23. They combined for 65 points in Game 1. Well, in Game 2, Horford played 28 minutes. We're just rounding up. Horford played 28 minutes. Smart played 25 minutes. White played 30 minutes. They combined for, let me just do the math, 16 points. It's not good. It's not good at all. Derek White was 4 of 13. Al Horford was 1 of 4. Marcus Smart was 1 of 6. They were combined 2 of 7 from 3. That's not going to win you basketball games against Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors did to Boston what Boston did to them in Game 1. In Game 1, Boston shot the lights out of the building, and they played Golden State's game of basketball the best, and they won. In Game 2, Golden State said, "Oh yeah, well, we're the second best defensive basketball team in the league for a reason. We're going to show you that," and they won. Here's something that's interesting, and I think that it will be something to watch out for in Game 3, because you look back to the first series they played the Nuggets in round 1, right? They were like, okay, we're going to let Jokic can go off for what he's ever going to go off for, but no one else can beat. We don't want Aaron Gordon or Monte Moore or like anyone else to beat them, and they got them into the second round, right? In the second round in the semifinals against the Grizzlies, like, okay, we're going to let Ja be Ja. We're not going to let anyone else beat him. And until Ja got hurt, that was the plan. And then I guess once you don't have your best player, then the series is pretty much over. And then in the Western Conference Finals, they did the same thing with Luka. We're going to let Luka do what Luka's going to do. He's going to drop 40 on us, let him drop 40 on us, but we don't want Dinwiddie or anybody else to score and beat us. And that got them into the NBA Finals for the 6th time in 8 years. Now, what we saw in Game 1 was, although Jason Tatum wasn't hitting his shots, because the others stepped up, they lost. Well, Jason Tatum in this game, in 34 minutes in Game 2, he had 28 points. He was 8 of 19 from the field. He was 6 of 9 from 3. Jason Tatum took the exact same shots he was taking in game one. Again, I'll read you the box. He was 8 of 19. Well, he only took 2 more shots in game 2 than he did in game 7 or in game 1. He just made more of them. That's the only difference. Like Jason Tatum's shot selection didn't change. He just made more of them. But what Golden State realizes, Jason Tatum's not going to go 3 for 17 again, which is what I had been telling everybody from the instant that game 1 was over. We're not seeing 3 of 17 from Jason Tatum ever again in this series, I would hope. The Warriors realize that. But what they also recognize is, okay, well, Horford, Smart, and White can't combine for 65 points again. But also, more importantly than that, Jaylen Brown can't be productive either. Because Jaylen Brown was also rather productive in game 1. And in game 2, Jaylen Brown in 28 minutes had 17 points. He was 5 of 17 from the field, 3 of 9 from 3. So let the best player be the best player. Let Jason Tatum go off for 30 points. Let him go for 35 points. But we cannot let anyone not named Jason Tatum be productive offensively or defensively for that matter. That was the big difference. Here's my one issue with the way that Jason Tatum played basketball in game 2. And don't get me wrong, he played better in game 2 than he did in game 1. But Jason Tatum still not being aggressive offensively. Jason Tatum several times had many instances when he was switched on to Steph, when he was switched on to Jordan Poole, and he just didn't take the shot. He just didn't. These are small guards. Jason Tatum owned Kyrie Irving in game 1 when those switches happened. Jason Tatum, to an extent, owned Drew Holiday when he got switched on to Drew Holiday. He owned Kyle Lowry and all the small guards in Miami when he got switched on to them. He needs to get that same mentality against Steph and Jordan Poole because Steph can't play defense. Although Steph did play really good defense in game 2, Steph can't play defense. Like, he's not a good defender. Jordan Poole's not a good defender. We'll talk about him in a second. I don't know where Klay Thompson went, but he hasn't had a good game so far this series, and his defensive productivity and his defensive efficiency isn't what it was post injuries. I would say injury, but he had 2 back-to-backs. Like post injuries, he's not the same defensively. Jason Tatum has to be more aggressive offensively because, as I talked about on Monday with Justin on his show with Steezy, Jason Tatum 100% can be the best player on a team that wins a championship. And he has an opportunity right now because he's the best player on a championship caliber team. He has a chance right now to be the best player on a championship winning team. And so far through 2 games, while he's improved his scoring, his playmaking dropped down. He went from 13 assists to 3. He's not being aggressive offensively yet. And we know that Jason Tatum can be aggressive offensively. And it's going to be interesting to see in game 3 and game 4, but specifically game 3, what version of Jason Tatum we get at home. Because you talk about the fact that this team, especially role players in general, don't play better at home. This team is 5-4 at home this postseason. 5-4. They are 1 game over 500 at home. And even though history will tell you since way back in January that Boston doesn't lose back-to-backs, and in this postseason, Boston usually outscores their opponent or wins the game by 15.5 points. That's one of the largest point differentials post-loss in the history of basketball in the playoffs. This team plays really tight at home. It takes them a while to get warmed up at home, or they get off to a fast start and then they lose it. And that's going to be something to watch for in game 3 as it pertains to how Boston looks. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But Jason Tatum has to be more aggressive if Boston wants to win this championship. Because while he hit more shots in game 2, he still wasn't being that aggressive killer that we've seen him to be in games past, in years past.
Yeah, and I think what you kind of hit on the head there was for the Warriors to almost take that Luka approach, right? Make sure that Luka gets his, so i.e. Jason Tatum gets his as the primary ball handler, because I think he needs to be more of a playmaker for them to be successful. And I know other than like a couple games in the Brooklyn series, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum really haven't had 2 good games. They haven't had a good game. Both had a good game together, right? It's either one has a good game and then one struggles. Another has a good game. It's just vice versa, just flip-flops. They haven't had, other than like in the Brooklyn series, because Brooklyn can't stop a cold when it comes to defense, that both of them had a quality game. So I think that's another thing that you have to look for. Can they figure out how to coexist? Because I haven't seen it in this postseason that they can truly coexist. I know Jason Tatum is clearly the alpha, and there is no question about that. But in late game situations, they're the worst team in the postseason. They are worse. They are the worst offense in the final 4 minutes this postseason.
They're the worst.
It ain't close.
On both
And
sides of
it
the ball,
ain't
this is the
close.
worst team offensively and defensively in clutch time. Which is why I said last week when I on my show when I previewed the finals and I got some heat for it, which is why I said that while Boston may have played better teams, Boston shouldn't have had 2 series go 7. You shouldn't have been in a 7-game series with the Bucks without their closer. You definitely shouldn't have been in a 7-game series against the Miami Heat, and all they really had was Jimmy Butler. And
Jimmy Butler had a shot to win the game.
and it's because of the lack of ability to stay clutch. Again, it took a historical shooting night in game 1 for them to win. Props off to them, take nothing away from it. But this is, to your point, this has been the worst team in the clutch this postseason. And so far, that has continued. So far, that has continued. Now, let's talk about Draymond Green.
Love that man.
I think, not I think, Draymond Green is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Without question.
I had some choice words for Draymond Green on Monday, and that's because I was a little bit I was a little bit heated. I didn't like that. I didn't want to talk about Draymond Green on Monday on Justin's show. So I want to first off say that I did exaggerate a little bit some of my words on Draymond Green on Monday, and I was kind of just spewing stuff because I was speaking from my heart. I was doing feelings over facts, and as we all know, you should always be facts over feelings. That's what this show is about: facts over feelings. Facts first, feelings second. Draymond Green is a bully. It's a fact. Draymond Green enjoys being a bully. It's a fact. Draymond Green is also an offensive liability for the Golden State Warriors. That's a fact. And here's why it's a fact. Because take nothing away from what Draymond can do as a playmaker and his basketball IQ. Because you can't teach playmaking, you can't teach basketball IQ. That just comes from learning the game and understanding what's going on. Taking nothing away from that, 100%. One of the highest IQs in the game today. Braun is undisputedly at the top. And then I think it goes CP3 and Draymond Green. I think those are the 3 guys that have the highest basketball IQs in the game today. You want to argue with me? Don't, because I'm not going to entertain it. But when Draymond Green has the ball in his hand as a shooter, no one cares. That is going to be an issue, especially if Klay Thompson doesn't get back to being the Klay Thompson he was against Denver, against Memphis, or against Dallas. So, Draymond being a bully, talking all this talk on the court, off the court, on his show, will his actions be a detriment to the Warriors' chances of winning this series? Because there's a legitimate argument to be made that Draymond should have got that second tech in his little kerfuffle with Jaylen Brown, and that would have ejected him out of the game. And we know that refs are seemingly afraid to tee up Draymond Green and kick him out of games, even though he probably deserves it. Will his actions be a detriment to your Golden State Warriors raising another banner, this one being their first in the Chase Center?
No, because he's the fuel to the fire. He is their engine. Everyone said you can make the argument that I think he's the most important player on our team. Sure. I don't think it's really close.
Sure. And I'm on record.
Anchor to our defense. He runs our offense as the point forward. I know everything's predicated off of Steph's movement and everything like that, but it's Draymond that's the one making the pass, making sure that we're all in the correct position.
Let me ask you a question about that.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, ask.
Because I saw we saw Kyle Kuzma's tweet, basically in reaction to Draymond now being top 10 all time in assists in the finals. And this is to take nothing away from Draymond. I just it's a question I think that is worth asking, right? If you put anybody that is a stout passer, so like a Rondo, Ricky Rubio, even if you put a guy like Ben Simmons out there, right? Do you think there's a steep drop off in the likelihood of Golden State winning this series specifically if you take Draymond out and put someone else in, as it pertains to production as far as offensively, as far as playmaking, IQ, things like that? Because we know that Draymond's the most important player on the team. We know that. He is the anchor of this defense. But the one thing that we've also have to recognize, and I think it's kind of gone understated, is we talk a lot about Boston being able to switch from the 1 through the 5. Golden State can do it too. Like they don't see much court play time, but they've got lengthy guys. They've got Jonathan Kuminga. They've got Moses Moody, young guys that are solid defenders. I think Gary Payton II is the best I think Gary Payton the second is their best perimeter defender on the team. You have Andrew Wiggins, who is, I would say, the only guy on the team that you can rely on offensively and defensively. Like he's the only guy. Like Steph, offense, of course. Draymond, defense, obviously. You look at Jordan Poole, that's only offense. You look at Clay, it's offense. His defense isn't where it used to be, as I said earlier. Andrew Wiggins is the only guy that you can look at and say, this guy can give me at least 15, 20 points a game, and he can make a big stop when you really need it. He's the only guy on the team that can do that. But they have the ability to switch. So if you take Draymond off this team and say you put in a Ben Simmons or Ricky Rubio or Rajon Rondo, does Golden State play differently? Like, is Golden State a worse team without Draymond Green as far as their chances to win a playoff series? Not so much like any given night, but just if you take Draymond out and you put in another guy that can make the same passes, because there are guys that can make the same passes as Draymond. You can make an argument. There are also better passers in the league than Draymond Green, right?
Yeah.
Any of those guys. Not the best of the best. We're not talking like a LeBron or a CP3, obviously, but a guy that can make the same type of passes as Draymond on this team, given their flexibility defensively, does that affect their chances of winning any given series or this series specifically? Because that's my thing.
I think so, because none of those players that you named, other than probably Ben Simmons, can do both, and Ben Simmons isn't a true leader in my opinion.
Sure.
Because I think the leadership part is the most important. I think that we get from Draymond, he's basically that second coach on the court for us. And yeah, let's just say I don't think we're championship contenders without Draymond. I think we're around conference finals, and that might be our peak. I don't think we would be winning championships because I think that's how vital he is.
That's fair. And like I said, I agree with you. And I'm on record as saying that Draymond's the most important player on the team. I just think I am of the mindset at this point in Draymond's career, his impact isn't the same at what it once was. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Draymond Green is no longer, in my personal opinion, that defensive player of the year caliber guy. And I think that more than anything, because he is the anchor of the defense, is the most important aspect of Draymond's game as far as what he, aside from, and of course he's the on-court coach because he has the IQ and things, but that's really important as well. And we saw him make Nikola Jokic look foolish in some of those games in the first round, right? And that's what he does. And he has shown glimpses of it, but he hasn't been that consistently. I do agree with you, though. I do think that they're not a lock to win a championship without him. I think they can still win a championship without him.
It's a lot more difficult.
It would be a lot more difficult, though. You're right. So I just wanted to ask you that question. I just wanted to see what you thought of that. Let's talk about Klay Thompson, because Klay Thompson's been.
What do you want to know? Because I think he honestly, other than 2 games in these playoffs, he's been disappointing.
Yeah, because he played 30 minutes in game 2. He had 11 points, 3 boards, 1 assist, 2 steals. He was 4 of 19 from the field, and he hit 1 of his 8 3-point attempts in game 2. Is Klay Thompson okay? Because from my estimation,
he's not okay, because I don't think he's fully recovered.
I think Klay Thompson's like the guy like that you look for in those big moments. Like he's like we talk about
Game 6 Klay, baby.
Reason like he is their clutch guy. He hasn't been good so far through 2 games. Is he okay, and does he kind of get on the right? I'm sure as a fan you would like for him to, but honestly, do you expect him to get back on the right track?
I don't think he's going to get back on the right track, but I think he's going to have that game when you really need him. And that's what's happened in this postseason so far. He's had 1 game in each series that you really needed him to show up, and he showed up, right? And that's only been it. So you could make the argument he's had 2 or 3 games that he's actually had the question mark of like, oh, okay. Like, honestly, like that game 1 against Memphis that he hit the game winner, he was atrocious that entire game, and he just hit the shot when he needed to.
Yep.
And then you had game 6, Clay, in that Memphis series as well, right? Was it? Yeah, Memphis. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, Memphis. And then I think more than anything, it is been accustomed that he is going to have a game, but I don't think he's going to have that consistency because I don't think he's fully confident in himself, and he's still rushing everything to hope to prove that he's back when he's not. And I think the rushing has been the real issue. And I thought he would have a better NBA finals because he gets that extra day of rest instead of just playing every other day. But he gets 2 days off now for the finals. I thought that would help. And it really is, honestly, I think it's made it worse. It's made him rusty. So
if this series goes 6, do you think we get a game 6 Clay performance?
I think so because the confidence that he produces because he's done it so many times has shown up. Like in that Memphis series, he was nowhere to be found until game 6. It's just that aura that like now that like he has that sense of self-belief in that moment. I am going to show up because I have shown up every time my team has needed me in that moment.
That's fair. Klay Thompson's not okay. I don't know what's wrong with Klay, but he's not okay. I think he'll get there. I guess the good thing is they haven't, at least in the game 2, it didn't seem to hurt them that he wasn't being productive. So maybe it's okay. We touched on this earlier. Let's just kind of focus on it really now.
Okay.
How important is game 3 for Boston? Because like I said, they don't.
I think it's more important for Boston than it is for the Warriors.
Okay.
Because I think the confidence, as we mentioned, is that they've struggled so much at home, right? They're 5-4 at home, but they haven't lost a game in a back-to-back. So if you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone if the Warriors win game 3, right? You prove that they can't win that they still can't win on the road or at home, and then you have kind of demoralized the team that they finally lost back-to-back games in the series. And I think that self-doubt will kick in, and I think that's what the Warriors are going to try and draw upon. Even though I think the Warriors have a better chance of winning, but I think the winner of the game 3 has the best shot of winning the series, but I don't think it's over for the Warriors like I think it would be over for the Celtics if the Celtics lose game 3, right? Does that make sense?
Warriors, so if Boston loses game 3,
I think it might
be game 4.
No. I think it falls apart for the Celtics if they lose game 3. That's what I think. I think it might. I have this series going 7 because I think Celtics are winning game 3, and I have the Warriors in 7. But I think if it could be over in 5 if they lose game 3 tomorrow night. I think it could be a huge snowball effect because I think the Warriors know that they should have won game 1. They should be up 2-0, and if they lose game 3, they're going to smell blood in the water because that's going to be self-doubt for the Celtics that they had to play out of their minds just to win 1 game, right?
So you have the Warriors then winning game 3.
Oh no, I have the Celtics winning game 3 tomorrow because I think I'm sticking to my prediction of Warriors in 7.
So you think? So you.
Boston will win game 3, but I think if Boston loses game 3, the Warriors are going to win the series faster than what people expect.
Okay.
Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this is going to be fun. Let's talk about the great Nicholas Wright. Okay. I didn't get the clip out to play on the show, so I'm going to play it off my phone. I'm going to play it in my mic so that hopefully you guys can hear it. This is Nick Wright on First Things First, switching his pick today. This was today. He did this today on the show. I'm going to play it. Hopefully you guys can hear it.
In changing picks. However,
Okay, here we go.
Picked the Nuggets to beat the Clippers in the bubble. The Nuggets were down 3-1. I picked the Bucks to beat the Nets last year. Bucks down 2-0. Picked the Bucks to beat the Suns. Bucks down 2-0 again. Never wavered. Now it hasn't always worked out in my favor. I picked the Mavs to beat the Warriors. Mavs down 3-0. You did. Never wavered. They lost in 5. I am not one to change picks, which is why this is as shocking to me as it is to you guys. Celtics in 6. Celtics are the better team. Celtics have been more impressive. Celtics are about to win Game 3 and Game 4 at home. As soon as this series got going, I was like, why did I pick the Warriors? All of the things that I was concerned about them in the Mavericks series are going to apply on a more well-rounded, better defensive team against the Celtics. But I picked the Warriors truly out of a personal vendetta against Kevin Wild and Celtics fans at large. I just find them so obnoxious and so irritating and don't want them to have joy and happiness. The Warriors have one path to winning the series. Steph Curry must be utterly transcendent for 3 more games. I think the Celtics are better. I think they've shown they're better. I think they've dominated this series outside of third quarters, and the Warriors are not going to get that energy boost in the third quarter once they're in Boston. So I've got the Celtics in 6. Listen, I don't like it.
And
I picked the
Let's go here.
Warriors. I picked the Warriors on television. I think I'm going to go back on TV and switch my pick. I never switch picks. I actually think the Celtics are in a really good position tomorrow.
I think that's a very rational thing to say at this point.
Through 3.
All right. So 5 hours ago, today's Tuesday, by the way. So when this comes out to you, it'll be 29 hours ago. 5 hours ago on First Things First, Nick Wright at Get Nick Wright said that the Celtics are going to win in 6. He thinks that they've dominated the series. They've been the better team. He was confused as to why he picked the Warriors in the first place. What's your reaction to that, bro?
I mean, I got no comment. No, all right. So, real talk. I think it's a valid argument. You could, but I don't, because the Celtics are the better defensive team. But I don't know what he's watched, because the Warriors in the third quarter have blown open both of these games. And again, as we mentioned in Game 1, they had to be historic in the fourth quarter to win that game. And in Game 2, yeah, I think they probably laid threw the towel in the fourth quarter after they pretty much realized after the third quarter the game was over. But every third quarter, the Warriors are always the better team. In every series, that's just their calling card. Steve Kerr is one of the best coaches to make adjustments at the half. And we've seen it each time. And honestly, because I think the Warriors also flip a switch that not many teams can actually get to, you know. They raise their intensity. They say, oh, all right, we've kind of just been playing, and yet we're right here. We're within 6 to 8 points or whatever, or we're up a couple. All right, let's bury them in the water now. It's time. And that's what they've been doing in this dynasty run with this team. So I think you have to actually look at that. I respect Nick Wright's comments. Do I agree with them? No.
In Game 1, Golden State won the first quarter. Boston won the second quarter. Golden State won the third quarter. And then obviously Boston won the fourth quarter 40-16. It was in Game 1.
Okay.
In Game 2. I clicked on Game 1 again. In Game 2, Golden State wins the first quarter. Golden State wins the second quarter. Golden State wins the third quarter. Boston wins the fourth quarter. So,
because the Warriors didn't play the fourth quarter. So,
right. So if you just do the math, if there's 8 quarters, what I'm reading then is that Golden State has won 3 of 4 quarters in Game 2, and Golden State won 2 quarters in Game 1, which means they've won 5 of 8 quarters of basketball. So wouldn't that then mean that the Golden State Warriors have dominated this series? If you're just looking at the box to box on a quarter to quarter basis. Listen, I'm sure that Nick Wright firmly believes what he's saying. The numbers don't back it up because Golden State has won 5 of 3 quarters or 5 of the 8 quarters of basketball. And again, it took an all-time great. It took the greatest fourth quarter ever in the NBA Finals for Boston to win Game 1. That I think we keep glossing over in when we talk about Game 1. I have Golden State winning Game 3. I think that the loss of Robert Williams, we're going to see that in Game 3. Although, as I talked about on Monday, although Boston does have a game plan of what they would look like without Robert Williams because they played the entire first series without Robert Williams for the most part. This is Golden State. Golden State's better than Brooklyn. Golden State's better than Milwaukee. Golden State's better than Miami. It's hard to game plan against this basketball team on this stage. And if they're going to continue to play drop coverage, that's not going to look good. This doesn't mean that I don't think Boston can win the series because, as I've said at least 30 times by now, and here's it for the 31st time, one less times as there are teams in the NFL. This series can go either way. I still think this series can go either way, but Golden State's the better team. They're the better offense. They have the better coach. They don't have the better defense, but they have the better offense. They have the better coach. They have the best player in the series, and usually the team with the best player in the series wins the series. There are outliers in history, right? There are obviously outliers in the history of basketball. You're looking and saying, maybe the best player on the team in the series didn't win, i.e. the 2011 Mavericks. Although Dirk Nowitzki was the best player in the series, you can make the argument, though, that LeBron James heading in was the best player on either team. The point remains, though, I do have Golden State winning Game 3. I think this would be the first time this postseason run, more specifically the first time since January 19th, I believe, Boston loses back-to-back games. And like you said, that could be the beginning of the end for Boston, because while we know how they respond after a loss, we don't know how they respond after back-to-back losses, and that is the key. And oh, by the way, as I mentioned, they are 5-4 at home. Unlike Golden State heading into Game 1, where they were undefeated at home prior to that Game 1 loss, Boston's 5-4. It is possible to beat It is very possible to beat Boston at home. They have 5 home.
They play extremely tight at home.
They do. They have 5 home postseason. They have 5 wins at home. They have 7 wins, I believe, 8 wins now on the road. They win more away from home than they do at home this postseason. Yep. That is not the norm, and that is something to look out for to see if that trend continues. Thank you, Blaine, for coming on the show. As always, I appreciate you for coming on the show, even though you are turning into not an enormous pain in my side. That's still Justin Marvel. That's still Justin Marvel, but you're getting there. Please let everybody know where they can find you, and what's up next for you.
You can always catch the Final Whistle Sports Podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we've got it. Got some new content coming out. I've been a little hiatus because of getting ready for a move, but going to have some NBA Finals talk coming out this week, so be on the lookout for that. As always, Marcus, appreciate you having me on. And now that I've hung out with you for like 3 hours today, I'm going to make sure I don't talk to you for like the next 3 days.
That works just fine. I'm not complaining about that at all. It's always a pleasure to have Blaine on the show. We have been sitting in front of a computer for the past 3 hours. Blaine was on the show about the Commanders that comes out next week. Look, I'm a very busy guy, ladies and gentlemen. Dropped the Hell in a Cell show on Sunday. Go ahead, or Saturday. Check that out. Dropped a Game 2 preview on Sunday. Go ahead, check that out. Dropped a Bears preview with my guy Jalen Hunter, the Unpopular Podcast, on Monday. Go check that out. No show on Tuesday. I do have to take some type of breaks. Do got to sleep. This show is out to you right now, clearly, as you're listening to it, watching it right now, prior to Game 3 on Wednesday. Falcon show on Thursday, most likely. We got a Game 4 preview on Friday. And then we're right back at it with a Game 5 preview because we're going to have a Game 5. So a Game 5 preview will be out on Sunday. I believe that's when Game 5 is. And then right back on Monday with more football. And we'll keep doing it how we've been doing it. We hit 150 episodes a couple weeks ago. At this pace, this breakneck pace that we're at, with episodes dropping every day in a week, the past couple weeks, we'll be at 200 very, very, very soon. I appreciate all the love, all the support.
Round of applause for my guy getting there.
I appreciate it. It has been an amazing journey. We're coming up on 2 years of the pod in August. September 1st is a fantastic day. You need to be sure you're tuned in for that. August 2nd, 2-year anniversary. Go Talk with Marcus. We hit 100 subscribers not too long ago. The goal is now to get to 150 by the end of the year. So please, please, please listen. Here's a stat for you. 63% of the people that are listening to this show right now are not subscribed. I need all 63% of you to press that subscribe button so that you cannot miss out on any more content. Why listen to the show and not subscribe? Subscribe to the show, okay?
Push that button, yo. Click it.
The red button and subscribe, please. So, for Blaine Spencer of the Final Wizard Sports Pod, this is Marcus of Go Talk with Marcus signing off. Make sure you press the subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, you guys enjoy the rest of your lives.
Dub Nation, let's do it.